What is up, you guys? We have made it to the final stage of this build process, and that is going to be putting this thing back together. We've got everything cleaned up, got everything polished up, got all our bearings and stuff greased up. We're ready to start slapping this thing back together, you guys. I'm super stoked for this. And before we get off on this, I just want to give a shout out to Motion Pro. If you know anything about this industry, like I said, major tool company for us, creating some of the coolest tools and some of the most useful tools specifically for this line of work, guys. So a huge shout out to them. Secondly, I'd like to shout out Decal Works. Decal Works was actually super kind enough to send us out some graphics for this project. I'm beyond stoked to do this. I'm actually going to do this on a separate video on how to lay your graphics like a pro. So shout out to those guys, man. Huge help. Also, shout out to FMF. FMF was kind enough to hook us up with some stuff for this project too. I'm super stoked to get everything moving with that. Anyways, guys, let's get to building this thing. First thing I like to do when I'm putting one of these back together, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and set the engine in there, get some of the smaller, like the bottom motor mount set in there, just to give it a good balance point when I go to put everything else in. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna get a bolt in this bottom motor mount right here. Always grease these bolts, guys. Just put a thin little layer of grease on every bolt, especially like these that go in there, man. It's just gonna save your life a ton. And some of these bolts get corroded, especially the one for some reason up here underneath the radiator. I'll show you. See how that gets all oxidized compared to so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a piece of Scotch-Brite and Scotch-Brite that down before I put that in, but make sure you put some grease on these. And that brings me to my next point right here. So when we start putting these bolts on, the threads are always super dry from the factory. That's just the way it is. Put just a little bit of this stuff on it. This is just some extreme pressure grease. I was actually put onto this by Red Bull KTM back in like 2017, 18, something like that. We're gonna put this on all of our pinch bolts. We're gonna put it on pretty much anything that doesn't need Loctite. Like even plastic bolts, anything. And I mean, don't put a ton of it on there. Just a little film of it. And what it's gonna do is just gonna keep everything from being dry, okay? And that's the key where you go. Especially if you got to change something in a hurry, you can't have like seized up bolts where you're fighting all that. You need everything to work good, come off easy, and you know, go back on easy. So like I said, we're gonna get the nut for this engine mount that we just put in right here. I'm gonna put just a tidbit of this stuff on it, and then we're just gonna hand tighten some of these things right now, because I'm just trying to get it set, and then we're gonna come in with our swing arm and put that on. And now that we've got this set up, sometimes if you have to wiggle it to get it in, put a rag down beside you right here on the floor, so that you can like set that that pivot bolt on. That way it's not picking up any dirt, and you can kind of maneuver things with somewhat of some open hands, because sometimes, like, since nothing's really tight yet, they've got these as on really tight tolerances, so getting to fit sometime is it takes a little bit of persuasion, but nonetheless it goes pretty well. But at least it opens up a hand for you. So when I'm doing these, I like to get them kind of slid on the bracket. If apparently I can't do that today, not sure what's going on. So, and you want to be careful here, because again, we don't have the shock end, so it's going to let the swing arm drop down really far, and you don't want to put this line in a bind. So just let everything kind of move free. It's not doing it right now, so I'm not necessarily too concerned, but just make sure there's slack in there where this doesn't get rolled up, if you know what I mean. So now that I've got my shock set, now I'm going to go ahead and actually mount my my brake lever, my rear brake lever, that it's not in such a bind anymore, and I can get that lined up. So we're going to do that, and then like I said, we're going to move to the front of this thing and start rolling on that. When you're doing your brake, your rear brake lever, you're going to want to grease this part where the O-rings are. But then, in most cases, you're going to want to put Loctite on the threaded spot. So that way it doesn't back out. That's kind of an important piece. So I'm pretty anal about, you know, when to Loctite, when to not Loctite. These can kind of be a mega pain to get in and out sometimes, but definitely Loctite that in, and make sure that the threads are pretty clean on both sides before you go in, and then just run it in there. Also too, with this pin that goes into the brake right here, if you want to reuse this old cotter pin, you can. I'm not going to, because I have more. But if you don't, I definitely recommend not reusing cotter pin. They're so small, they're kind of junk. If you have the ability and the means, just use a new one. Now that that's all set up, we're gonna make our way up here to the front. So before we go to putting the steering stem back in, get you a little bit of grease, guys. And I know we've already greased the bearings, but put just a little layer of grease around this race right here, y'all. It ain't gonna hurt nothing. It's just gonna make everything set just a little bit better. And don't be scared to put a decent layer on it. You don't have to go super thin, because you definitely don't want anything dry in here. So more grease you put on it, the better off it is, I promise. And if you get any excess when you do this, just wipe it off before you put the stem on. Like if you get any up here, because like I said, grease is good, but also remember, grease is a dirt trap. So anywhere that you can keep it from building up, the better off you'll be. We won't necessarily worry about tightening this a lot yet, just because we're gonna get it kind of seated. And then I like to have the bars on it when I'm adjusting the tightness of the steering, just for the fact of I get a better feel for it. And I mean, you can feel like when it's starting to get tight right here, but the problem is the second you put your bars and stuff on, what feels tight like this is gonna feel like, and it's just gonna flop. So there's just there's levels to this. With these clamp bolts, we're gonna pull them out, and we're gonna put some of that high pressure grease on it. So we're gonna bust these out real quick. You can do this when you're taking it apart, like already, if you want to, but like, see, these things are stiff, dude, and they're like dry in there, and that's not gonna work for me. Take a little dabble do of this, a little dabble do ya. And it's gonna be so much better. Yeah, look, now I can screw it in by hand, you know what I mean? What we're doing here is like doing the hard work one time to make any other time that I want to work on this thing a breeze. And when I say very little, guys, I mean you just need a little. It's not gonna focus. I don't want it to. You just need a little bit. So when I'm starting to do putting my cooling stuff back on, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start mounting up like all my fittings and stuff that go to the engine. And before I put that in there, guys, put a little bit of grease on that O-ring right there, man. Make your life easy when it comes time, if you got to pull it back off, anything like that. And it's going to keep the O-ring from tearing as you put it in there. So don't be scared. You're not going to get water all in the grease all in the cooling system or anything like that. You're not going to. It's fine. Just put a little bit. Obviously, if you load it up, you will, but just put a little film of it on there. Also, I may get some criticism for this, but I don't really care. With these hoses, put just a little film of grease on them on the inside too. Do that. It's gonna make your life, so you're gonna have these hoses that get seized up on here and they're a pain in the butt to break loose. We're gonna eliminate that, man. Just put just a tiny little film of grease, even if you want to. Put your little film in there. Put a little bit, whatever, and then get a rag and just wipe it back out. But what that's gonna do is that's gonna sit on that rubber and it's gonna keep this stuff from seizing up on there. One thing too, while we're here, if you can, always make sure your clamps are like back here. Don't ever even, more or less with these style of clamps, the twist style regular hose clamps, because the fact of, if something comes flying up while you're riding, it can hit one of these clamps and break it. So ultimately you just want the strap showing to the front, that way if anything comes up, it's not going to hit this piece right here and cause it to break. And it's highly unlikely that you could have that kind of luck. But it's things like that that you got to just pay attention for and try to prevent from happening. We made it to a point that we've got our coolant system installed. This is the point where I'm going to start feeding my wiring in. I'm going to start getting everything kind of dialed up because everything's still pretty open right here. It's going to leave me plenty of space to do what I need to do, and I'm also leaving the top engine hangers off for the time being, just because it allows me a little bit more space. This also brings me to another point that it should have been filmed earlier, but I forgot to film. We're going to put a little bit of dielectric grease on each of these connectors, and what that's going to do is it's just going to help keep moisture out, which is key for anything electrical. On these pins, they're bone dry, and we're trying to prevent moisture here. So we're going to put some dielectric grease on all of these. We're going to go through and do it on each one of these connectors on our harness before we put it in the bike. And what I mean, put dielectric grease on it, I don't mean put it on there and cake this thing on. No. What you're going to want to do is you're just going to want to take just the slightest little dab of it, and you're going to want to just brush it over. You're just going to want to brush it over these connectors. You don't want it gunked up. You don't want anything like that. Because they say this stuff's non-conductive, but ultimately, you never know. So we're just going to take a little bit and put just a little film over the top of that, just like that. And then we're going to plug this back in. And what it's going to do too is keep connectors from seizing up as well. So we're going to go through this whole harness. We'll start from the back and work our way forward. But now we've got that done, and now we're just going to start running our wires in and getting everything dialed up and wired up. So I like to start kind of from the center right here. You'll see what goes where. Everything's going to go to the back. Might be a tight fit with like your kill switch and stuff, so just do yourself a favor and unplug this stuff. All right, now we're at a point, got most of our wires tidied up right here, just kind of hanging around. What we're gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and put this throttle body in, start getting that wired up and ran up. And again, I don't care what any of you guys say, put you a little, just a slight little film of grease on this stuff. And another thing with putting grease on an air fitting like that is It'll also help catch a little bit of dirt too. If you have any dirt come by the side of this boot, it will it'll help catch some of that. If you're already in right here, you've got your throttle body on, tighten it up. Tighten up the boot. This is one of the easiest things to forget, is tightening up an air boot. And then also too, if you've got rags in there, paper towels, whatever you got, make sure you've taken them out. I have made the mistake before of leaving a rag in an air boot and being in a full-blown panic on race day on why the bike wouldn't start. So, rookie mistake, I know, but it does happen. So keep that in mind. So we got our subframe on. We're gonna come in right here, get our little Bluetooth connector thing. We're gonna feed that back through because that's gonna be we're gonna do something different. We're gonna pull the rubber off of it and then feed it through, and then clip it back here on its little spot. We're getting to the good parts of this, where we're gonna start putting the forks on and all that. But I'm just a big fan of doing all my wiring and stuff first. It keeps things simple. Make sure, a lot of the times we wouldn't run these, we would just cut these off. But if you got a stock bike, they do help keep water out, but also too, they're bad about holding water. So keep that in mind. Whenever you're doing something like this, I need to get a little zip tied through that. And yeah, so we're gonna tidy this side up, go over to the other side, get our starter and stuff, our solenoid put on, and then we're cruising. We're at the point where I'm wanting to start working on the front, but the thing is I want to go ahead and get the rear tire on, the chain, everything set up back here in the back. That way we got some good balance. When I go to put them forks on, it's gonna wanna teeter forward. So we're gonna go ahead and finish up back here in the back. Again, we haven't torqued anything. Keep all of that in mind. We haven't torqued anything yet, and we're not going to until the wheels are on, and we've got it setting up either on a triangle or leaned up against the wall, whatever the case we need to do. We've got our rear tire on. Everything's good to go there. So now I'm not scared to put any weight up here with the forks and stuff of it coming forward. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna install these forks, and then I'm going to put the bars on, and we're gonna start tying in our start switch, kill switch, all of that, getting everything set up here. And we're getting to the point where the bolts are starting to dwindle and the bench is starting to get to be a mess. That's how I know I'm creeping at the end right here. And then once we get the forks on in the front end, we're just gonna install the battery and put some fresh plastics on this thing, and we're dialed. All right, when you get your throttle tube on, what you're gonna wanna do, obviously I need to put this other screw in there. So leave it, just break it enough where you can slide it back and forth. So you're gonna pull it all the way up, and then what you're gonna do is you're just gonna slightly pull it off like that, even just a little bit. And the reason we do that, any mechanic will do that, is because you don't want, on the inside of this tube, you don't want that rubbing against the handlebar. It can make your throttle really slow, it can be grabby, you know, so you always want to pull it all the way on and then bump it just a little bit off. Fast and smooth, just the way we like it. Now I'm going to put my front brake lever on and get my brake system dialed up here. It's a little unorthodox to use your mouth, but it works. And then we'll set these later, but for now we're just getting them on the bike. We're gonna put a little bit of our grease on, and we're gonna get our caliper bolts mounted. And some people are probably like, oh, you should use Loctite on these caliper bolts. No. We're not gonna do that. You can. We'll need to do that. But what I'm doing here, guys, is before I tighten my pinch bolts, these forks, the way they set, if it comes in, it wants to pull either against or apart from each other, whatever. And what it's doing is while I still have it loose, if it's in a bind or anything like that, and I'm hitting the brake, it's kicking itself to like straighten itself where it naturally wants to sit, the fork being on the axle. So that way it takes everything out of a bind right there. One of the biggest things about torquing, especially subframe, shocks, suspension, linkage, whatever, you want it on the ground. You want to get this thing on the ground. You want to have weight on it. That way, as it's torqued, it's not torqued up and then it bounced down and bust a bolt loose or anything like that. You want everything in the way that it rests, I should say. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pop that off. We're gonna move that stand out of the way. And what I'm gonna do is I'm actually just gonna put this on a triangle stand, and we're gonna lean this over. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna compress on that, and I could even feel, like even with my hand tight bolt, if something went boom, down. So now you've got everything kind of settled. So now when we get to this point, we've got it set down, got everything set with some pressure on it, not a ton, but enough. I'm gonna start torquing with the shocks, the linkage, then I'm gonna go to the swing arm pivot, motor mounts, then I'll go to my front end and just torque everything up. The front end's not quite as necessary to have weight on it. You don't really have to, but especially for motor mounts, linkage, shock, all of that, you want to have weight on this. So we're going to go around and torque these to spec. I don't know if I said this before, but when you're doing pinch bolts, guys, like right here on the forks, you're going to want to alternate how you do that when you go to torque it, because these pinch bolts, the way they squeeze together, it'll make the other one loose as you tighten the other one. Does that make sense? So you're gonna wanna do like a half turn, a quarter turn, whatever, on each one and work it down as if you were doing like a cylinder head or something like that. Just work your way down until they both kind of evenly squeeze, and that goes for the front axle, that goes for your triple clamps, any kind of pinch bolt like that. So when you go to do these foot pegs, these springs are kind of a pain, so make sure that's resting on top of your actual bracket. What we're gonna do is we're gonna get it somewhat lined up, and then you gotta push this spring in order to get it to go all the way down, and it can be kind of a pain in the butt. So what I like to do is I get a T-handle, and that's what I use to press. And although it can be kind of a pain in the butt to get these things to maneuver, just give it a little press and wiggle it around, you know what I mean? And it'll go where it needs to go. And then boom. Now again, with these, we are not gonna reuse the old cotter pins. We're gonna put some freshies on there. So I highly recommend it if you're doing anything like this, get a thing of cotter pins and just do that. One thing we're gonna do before we put our header pipe on, see how it's all dirty and stuff? We're gonna eliminate that. Get a piece of red Scotch-Brite, guys. And wait, you see that? Watch. I'm gonna show you guys what kind of difference this makes. And it'll take away that discoloring, like that blued kind of look. But, and I mean, if you like that, that's something that's like, oh, I you know, need that or whatever. I definitely will tell you it'll come back. The second it gets hot, that discoloration will come back. But we're not gonna put a dirty header pipe back on here. So you're just gonna Scotch-Brite the crap out of this thing. And see what I mean? We're gonna do that to this whole thing before we put it on. So yeah, definitely do that, guys. Take the time, like if you've already got it down, clean this stuff up. You want it to look good. That's the whole purpose of what we're doing right here. You want it to function good and look good. When you're putting your header pipe on, make sure that you're tightening them down to the same length. It's easy to get that piece to set crooked on there. So make sure as you're tightening your nuts, or if it's a bolt, whatever the case, even on the flange, like if you've got a spring set that you just pop the springs off to pop the header pipe, the actual piece that comes out of here, make sure that you tighten that down evenly. That way it seals up properly. And then check your copper gasket in there as well to make sure that's sealing. You don't want to leak right there. So make sure that you're alternating how you tighten that down. Now that we've got our header pipe on, it is now time to... Nah, it ain't time for that. Guys, this is where I want to take a moment to shout out one of the best in the business. Shout out to FMF for hooking us up with this pipe. Reached out, told him what I was doing. They hooked it up for your guy. FMF, you guys, has been a prominent piece of the moto industry. They've been making a fast mother since 1973. Beyond stoked. Guys, if you don't believe the hype, check out who won 2 of the 3 championships in Supercross this year. Guess what they're running? So guys, super stoked. Thank you at FMF, man, for hooking it up. We're gonna put it on here and take the muzzle off the old dog right here and let her bark. Next thing we're gonna do is get our battery set off in the tray. Boom. That goes underneath that actually. Yeah, just like that. Look at that. Wow, would you just look at that? And I meant to tell you too, before you put that tank on, do one more look over at all your wiring. Make sure everything's connected, make sure everything's good, make sure nothing's rubbing against anything that could mess it up. Just do it. Take your time with that and do it. Because it can save you a ton of headache and then having to take everything back apart to get to that point. All right, real quick. So before I start putting my shrouds on, I'm gonna go ahead and top this off with coolant because it's kind of a pain in the butt with the shrouds to get the top on and off. So if I'm already right here, let's just top this thing off and call it a day. So this is how this thing turned out. Beyond stoked with what some work into it can make this thing turn into, you guys. This thing is super dialed, but we're not gonna stop here. We're actually gonna put some graphics on this thing, put a new seat cover on this thing. We're gonna get it nice and dialed up. That's gonna be a separate video that I'm gonna do. I'm gonna show you guys how to lay your graphics right. I'm gonna show you guys how to do a seat cover. So guys, anyways, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments. Shoot me a DM, whatever the case. I'll do my best to answer anything I can for you guys. It's always a good time doing one of these. Very time consuming when you're trying to self-record and all of that. But nonetheless, we got it done. Big shout out to FMF hooking us up with a pipe, decal works, getting us some graphics. Thank you guys. Hit the like, subscribe button. Like I said, if you got any questions, feel free to reach out. I'll do my best to answer it. And catch you guys on the next one.